Hi, welcome. Today's class is going to be working with paper beads. I took one of these that we made the other day. This is from our eggshell craft. And I took it and I made some clay beads from our clay class. And then these are some of the paper beads that I threw together to show this off. So I'm thinking that what I'm going to do is combine all of these into a necklace for a Mother's Day gift. So in order to make paper beads, let me take these off of here. We have to cut up some paper. And I'm pretty thrifty. Okay, so I'm really cheap. And I don't like throwing anything away. But I have all these Harbor Freight ads that come to the house, and they have multitudes of pages in there. And all I would do with these otherwise is throw them in the trash. They're too small for anything else. So what I did was I cut them into strips to use for these beads. Now, the beads, you use different patterns that you cut things out, the paper out, to make the different types of beads. See, there's different patterns for each one. You can find these online, these patterns. That's where I got this, and then I just printed it out. There's that type. Then there's these that make these beads, depending on what shape you want your final bead to be. I'll probably turn it around so you can read it. That would be much better, yes. Depending on what shape you want your bead to be, you cut it out differently. And what you do when you cut it out, you can take this template and put it on the back side of the paper, draw around it, and cut out the shape. Or if you're doing something like these, you pretty much just have to draw dots on either end and connect the dots across, and you're just cutting out one particular shape. So you can find, as I said, you can find these templates online and just print them out so that it gives you an idea. And I played around with them a little bit to get the different types. And I used, like I said, I used my Harbor Freight ad that Dennis gets. So I took that Harbor Freight ad and I just cut it into strips. Like these have that pattern that makes the double bead, like this one here. That's this one. And it just took the center out of this rectangle. And then I have the centers left over that I can make another bead out of. And each one of them I cut out two so that I'll have one that matches on either side. So you cut out your strips to whatever way that you want them to look, whatever end pattern you want to have. So this being a triangle, then the other ones being like this one is a double. Some of these are just rectangles. Some of them are the triangles, and then some of them are, if I can find them, this one. Some of them are smaller on one end here than they are on this other end. And whenever you roll them and turn them into a bead, they make different shapes. This is the double one. This is just a single rectangle. This is a single rectangle. This is another double one. And these are singles. And see, it's got you can tell what it was. I mean, it's a newsprint. But what I do is I have skewers that I have at home. You can use toothpicks. You can use things like this little glow-in-the-dark stick that the kids play with. Or you can use toothpicks, anything that you can set as the center so that it'll be hollow when you get done with it. Take your paper and your glue. Now you can use tacky glue. Again, you can use Mod Podge or school glue, whatever glue you should happen to have at the house. I have an abundance of tacky glue because I use it in all kinds of different things, so I always have tacky glue on hand. And you take your tacky glue or your school glue or whichever kind, and you draw it down like so. Take your bead or your paper. I apologize, my bird's in the other room jealous because she hears me talking. And you just start rolling it up on the skewer or the toothpick or whatever it is that you have. And the secret to it really is more that you just keep it taut, that it's going to be nice and tight when you get done. And see, just keep going and going and going, turning it as you go. And you're going to have extra glue to come over the outside edge, but that's fine because that's going to help seal those outside edges. And just keep going and going and going, and there you are. You're there at the end, and you just keep twirling it. And that little bit of glue that you got on either end is going to seal that. So that's one bead. And you just do that with the next one. Same thing. You just grab another piece. We'll do one of these doubles. Put your glue on there from the end down. And I don't go all the way to the right hand side here, the bigger part. I don't go all the way there because I don't want it to stick on my skewer permanently. That way when I start it, I can start like so, and it'll come right off whenever I'm done with it. So we just roll it up like so. And these doubles, I found in experimenting that they're easier to do. See, I just pulled that tight. They're easier to do if you do one side at a time. So I will take that and keep it nice and tight. Do this other side here. I'm sure if you're somebody who's done these a lot, you could probably just flip right in there and get both sides at the same time. Or they actually have this machine that you can wrap your beads in, just the same way that I'm doing manually on the skewer, only they have this little thing you can buy. I just don't make things often enough like that to be able to justify buying something. Now see, I've got that one side done. It's going to come loose, but don't worry about it. On the end, it'll come loose until I get this one done. And I'm turning it, and turning it, and turning it, making a double. See how it's risen in the center, on the edges here, here, and over here. Both of those are raised, and then the middle is recessed, and then it'll come right off the skewer whenever you're done. Same thing with this one, it'll come right off. So you let that dry, or you continue to fill the skewer up. I had this thing completely full a while ago. Let them dry. Once they dry, you have these. These are your finished ones, and see that's got the hole in the center so that you can use the wire in them, or however you want to string them. You could put them with rat tail cord, or you could do it with even fishing line or elastic thread, whatever. But you just take, I wanted mine brown so it looked more like wood, so I just took my enamel paint and I painted it brown. Now this could actually have used another coat, but I was in a hurry. And I kind of think that the areas where you can see through, whenever you're looking at it on here, it almost gives it more of a, I don't know, gives it more interest. It's just not a flat thing laying there. But, so I've made these beads, and I've painted these beads, and they have dried. Then I took some of my wire. This, you can get craft wire anywhere. Walmart's got it. You can buy it through Amazon. But I take my wire, cut off a section. And this lovely little gizmo that the kids play with that glows in the dark, I take it and I wrap it like this to begin with. And it keeps a end that's rounded for me. And then this other part goes inside my bead. So you see I have this rounded part here, just like here. And then I'll take my bead and I will insert this in the bead, like so. Take this again. Now this time, wrapping it this way. So we have another loop there. Trim it off. Then we're going to tuck this little piece of wire in so it doesn't catch on your necklace or your shirt or whatever. Come on, there it is. Sorry, I've got glue stuck to my finger from making those beads. Tuck it in. Okay, now we have like so. Now had I left the tail on there, the long tail, instead of cutting it off, I could wrap it like this, like these are done. So you can either have it where it's just the bead with the two ends to hook together, or had I left the wire on there, let me give you some wire to show you. If I had left the wire on, oops, then I could take it and just wrap it around the bead and secure it on the end down here and trim it off. And then do the same thing going in the opposite direction on this end. So you end up with a wire wrapped bead. And all this gets tucked in down here. Now this one will be a little bit more bulky than the ones that I did before because I ended up putting more wire on this. The other ones I used just the tail off of it and wrapped it with the tail. But it's good enough to give you an example and an idea as to what I'm talking about. So there's a bead. Now what do we do with those beads? My project, as I was showing you in the very beginning here today, is I took this eggshell covered piece of wood that we did this past week, and I took it, I wrapped wire around this way to give me a bezel type of thing to hang on to it with, put a jump ring on the, get rid of this glue, put a jump ring on this bezel I made. I connected it to some of the clay that we had made. Excuse me. And then I took the clay and I connected it to another bead. And I just finished that. I keep doing that until I finish this necklace to be how we want it to be. So we're just going to hook onto the back side here. Thread that on. And I don't know if you are aware how to work these jump rings or not, but you see how I close that off like that? When you open these, you don't just pry them open. See how they come like this? You don't just take it and pry it open this way. You take it and you turn it this way, and it keeps the strength of that ring so that whenever you get ready to lace things together, and you've hooked it together, you just close it back the way you just opened it, and it makes sure that it doesn't come out. So we have that, and we're going to use this size here. Man, that glue looks bad on that finger. At least you know what it was. There. So see how nice and smooth that is? All I did was close that back off again. So I have those. And then the next step, I wanted to put another bead here. So in order to put that other bead there, I'm going to have wire. We want it to have the same size loop on the end that the other ones have. So we just take that and twist it up. Wash your hands before you start doing this instead of doing it like I am with all this mess on my fingers. But you see, I've got that twisted around there like that. You just put it right inside the hole. Pull it tight. Put a loop on the other side. And go. Now see what I did with these beads? I initially covered them with clear glue, because that's what we had. I mean, you could use varnish, you use whatever you have, but I covered it with clear first, and then I painted it with my enamel color, my orange. Then I took it and I put some brown antiquing on it, and then put some gold. And those would be, I started off orange, then I went to brown, which is the same brown I used on the brown beads, and then I put some of the gold, just for highlights, randomly placed on those beads, and it gave it a mottled look, but I think it looks pretty good on the beads. So we just take this and we hook this on here. Another jump ring. Now you may not want to use jump rings that are this big. I honestly wouldn't have either, but I'm using what I have on hand. So whenever you go through your things, maybe you want to recondition or reuse a bracelet or something you have at home. Use the jump rings you have for that bracelet. You don't have to go and buy anything new, just reuse what you already have. But see, the way this is going together, it's piece by piece. Starts off with the salt dough, starts off with the eggshell on the wood that we used the alcohol inks on. I wired that together using that with the salt dough beads. Then we have our paper beads we made today, hooked together with another salt dough bead, and just randomly do it until you get it done. And what I will do is I will finish this. There's no sense in watching paint dry, so to speak, but I have other beads to put on here, all different. See here how these are, how I painted them. And you don't want them, to me they look better if they're not uniform. I mean, you can make them uniform size and color and texture, but I like the non-uniform look of these. I like the fact that they look more organic. They just don't look like they were pressed out of a mold, because they weren't. Same thing with the beads. None of them are going to be the same, and I like the fact that there's variations in the color. But what I'll do is I will put it together, and when I get the item finished, this lovely necklace, when I get it finished in a little bit, because I have to add this to the back side to hold it together, I will put it on and I will show you what it looks like. So I thank you for coming, and I hope you have a wonderful day. God bless.